Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day.
Our universe is deeply interconnected.
Yes, amen.
Amen. All right, yeah, I like that. Today is Earth Day, April 22nd, 2018. The theme this year, as every year the National Council of Churches and around the world as well, we create a theme each year so that our stewardship is mindful and current and inclusive. This year it's ending plastic pollution. I don't know if you've read that. And that's a commitment that we can make individually and as a congregation. And that's the theme for 2018. So we assess at Earth Day, this is the time of year where we pause and we assess how we're using plastics. And then we make a commitment, a pledge to ourselves, maybe even as a congregation. That would be another year we could do that more mindfully. But even for ourselves, we can pledge to assess how much plastic we use and to, at some degree, decrease it. That's what we realistically know we can ask of ourselves, is see what we do and try to decrease it. However, today I'm not going to follow that theme, because sometimes if I listen to where God is leading me, I might find another theme. And this week, as I was, at the beginning of the week, I was praying about how to mindfully reflect Earth Day with you. And one of the nurse practitioners at Royal Oak Beaumont in the palliative care department comes up to me, toting this bag. And she comes up to me and she says, "Chaplain, have you been to New York and seen the 9/11 memorial? And have you seen this tree replanted there?" And I said, "Well, no, I haven't, but that's on my bucket list." And she says, "This is a great Earth Day theme." I was telling her I was praying about it. She said, "You must do this." So that's what we're going to learn about today. Has anybody been to New York and seen that tree that survived? Oh, Janine. Janine has.
I see it.
Yeah.
I got it on my camera and on my phone.
Wonderful. It's a calorie pear tree. Yeah, just so that you know. This is an important tree. More important, yes, Mark.
I was at the World Trade Center 4 times last year, but I never saw that tree. Do you know where it is? By the,
I don't, but I wish I could tell you.
I didn't, there's a bunch of trees actually.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it stands by itself.
It might be, wouldn't that be a fun road trip? And then, well, because I'm always wanting a road trip, but not just to see the 9/11, because one of our own was killed on 9/11, and it would be meaningful to pay remembrance of her and family. But not just that, but then we could visit the Washington DC church while we're out there, which would be kind of fun.
There's one in
But-
New York too.
Yeah, there is a church in New York too, but we've been wanting to do the national church as well, so we could do both. We could just have like a tour.
Do it all.
But anyway, I regress. But so this calorie pear tree, the story of this tree is incredibly inspirational for you and for me, and here's why. On 9/11 in 2001, when the trade towers went down, a month after the tragedy, they found this one tree that was covered in rubble, but still alive. So they called the New York Park and Recreation Department, and they took it out of the rubble, and they took it back to where they could take care of it. And they what they call it is they rehabbed the tree. They actually helped it to recover gently. And they did rehabilitation with the tree. And it wasn't for 9 years, it was 9 years later that the tree was well enough to replant back there. And 9 years later, this pear tree had these smooth branches that grew out of the gnarled, broken branches. So when they got it out of the rubble, The roots had been snapped from the tragedy. The branches had been burnt and pretty much destroyed. But out of these gnarled, stubby branches grew these smooth branches that really mark the point of tragedy for the tree. So the tree is showing its tragedy and its rebirth. Ha! Pay attention, people. So this tree, now replanted, is a symbol and a living remembrance of resiliency. What is resiliency? It's the ability to bounce back stronger than you were before, since the tragedy, since whatever it is that broke you. And we all get broken, don't we? That's the cross, and that's the power of the cross. So, here is this tree that has been replanted and survived its gnarled, broken roots and branches. And it's back looking beautiful and resilient to the point of these pear blossoms that we now can see in the springtime. So we see it as a symbol, a living symbol that's been through the brokenness of 9/11, that shows resiliency. It shows the ability to survive that which should have killed it and did kill many. All organisms on that site, not that tree. And a symbol of rebirth and a symbol of hope. Wow. Now, I want to take this moment in the message to include some of you who were here early enough that I could ask you to help me. What I'd like to do right now is to tell you that how the blessing of this tree is continuing on is that seedlings from this survivor tree are planted in areas around the world that have endured tragedy. Did you know that? Yes. So every year since 2013, they have harvested the seedlings of this survivor tree and planted more of these calorie pear trees wherever there's a site of enduring tragedy. So this, whatever's in this tree that is so resilient, is now being shared as a remembrance of the resiliency of the Spirit, which is in the tree, it's in you and me. So I'd like to pause before I continue with the message I'd like to share. By beginning, I'm going to read the first seedlings. Actually, this is the most recent in 2017. And then I'm going to ask Fred, and then I'm going to ask Mary, and then I'm going to ask Stephanie, and then we're going to finish with Barb. These are the sites where this pear tree's seedlings have been a blessing and a reminder of the resiliency of life. In 2017, seedlings, a nurturing tree, serves as a landmark symbolizing hope in Manchester, England, in memory of the 22 people, including young adults and children, who were killed by a terrorist bombing at an Ariana Grande concert on May 22nd, 2017. Charleston, South Carolina, in memory of the 9 people killed in a shooting at Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church. And another seedling planted, the country of Haiti, which was devastated by Hurricane Matthew in October of 2016. The Embassy of Haiti in Washington, D.C. accepted the survivor tree seedling on behalf of its country. And now for 2016, Fred.
San Bernardino, California, in memory of the 14 people killed and 22 injured on December 2nd, 2015. Orlando, Florida, in memory of the 49 people killed and 58 injured at Pulse nightclub on June 12, 2016. The seedling has been planted at the Harry P. Lau Gardens in Orlando. The country of France, in memory of the 139 people killed and 368 people injured in Paris on November 13, 2015. And the 86 people killed and 434 injured in the Bastille Day attacks in Nice on July 14, 2016. The seedling has been planted in Paris, France.
Thank you. And Mary?
15 seedlings. Newton, Connecticut, in memory of the 20 school children and 6 adults who were killed on December 14, 2012 at Sandy Hook Elementary School. Joplin, Missouri, in memory of the more than 150 people killed and more than 1,000 injured by a tornado in Joplin on May 22, 2011. The seedling for Joplin was planted at Mercy Hospital, Joplin, which was in the direct path of the tornado. Madrid, Spain, in memory of the 2004 coordinated terror bombings against the commuter train system of Madrid that killed 190 people and wounded 1,800. The actual planting of the tree took place at Spain's embassy in Washington, D.C. Madrid is the first international recipient in the program.
Thank you. Steph?
2014 seedlings. Oso, Washington, in memory of the 43 people killed in the March 22nd, 2014 mudslide in a small town, and in recognition of their resiliency. Gulfport, Mississippi, to remember those who died in the region devastated by Hurricane Katrina in August 2005. Fort Hood and Killeen, Texas, in honor of the 16 victims and survivors of the shootings on November 5th, 2009 and April 2nd, 2014. And an acknowledgement of the continued sacrifice of the men and women who serve and their families.
Barb?
213 seedlings. Far Rockaway in Queens, New York, which was torn and battered in 2012 by Superstorm Sandy. Prescott, Arizona, in honor of the 19 firefighters members of the Granite Mountain Hotshots who died on June 30th, 2013. The fires in Arizona resulted in the highest number of American firefighters killed in a single incident since 9/11. Boston, Massachusetts, in honor of the 3 people killed in the bombing at its marathon on April 15, 2013.
Thank you. There's something in this tree. There's something in this tree that makes it different. And that same something is in you. We are only just beginning to understand non-human consciousness. We're only now beginning to understand non-human consciousness. And with a focus on trees, the trees have something very special in them and of them that we can learn from. The trees communicate in a way that we're only now starting to really measure. Did you know that at our convention this summer, there's going to be a train ride in the redwood forest, which I'm going to miss, but I'm sure that whoever gets to go, the redwoods have an interconnected root system that surpasses any other forest. And why do they do this? This is the question. What does it give them? These are our silent companions. It's important to think of the trees as our silent companions. They speak, but they don't speak with words. They exchange energy, but not the way that we do, but in some ways the same. Did you know that trees have different ways of supporting each other? They have direct roots that actually reach out under the earth, of course, and they reach out to other trees through their roots to keep them fed and stable. Did you also know that they use interconnecting roots that kind of wrap around weaker roots that keep those trees strong and alive? And did you further know that there is a fungal network, that when the roots themselves aren't enough, there is this fungal network that wraps around the roots that feeds not only their neighbors and their own species, but guess what? They feed their competitors as well. Now I have a question for you. Are you ready? What's behind door number 3? No. I have a question for you. Why would a tree send, and the fungal network is like the nervous system in the human body, by the way. It's sensitive like your nerves. Why would trees feed and nourish their competitors?
We all work together, no matter what.
Why?
They love each other.
I would like that. I would say yes to that. And there's another reason too. Let's stick with Teresa and Mom's answers, and there's one more reason. And it's true for you and me too.
If you keep your competitor happy, then it's not gonna hurt you.
Oh, that's a nice thought.
What was that?
You should be a diplomat. But, not, okay, let's take that too. Yes,
Because there's kind of strength in numbers.
that's it. That's enough. That's the answer. Okay, so here's what it is. Either they get direct support through the root system, either they get wrapped around their roots to keep them up, or they get this fungal network that's like a nervous system that's communicating and feeding and nourishing everything. Why? Because a tree, one tree, does not make a forest. One human being does not make,
Community.
go higher,
Society.
Humanity,
higher,
God.
heaven. Yes.
It's like an ecosystem,
Yes.
you know, sound.
Yes, yes, very good.
Yeah.
So one human being does not make heaven on earth or anywhere else. We must have each other. The trees know this. They know that they can't survive the ravages and the stresses of the weather and the storms alone. And their chances of thriving over time for a period of time are much greater if their ability to nourish and feed reaches out to all around them. Let us learn from this. When we're downhearted, if you've come to church today and you're feeling low, yeah, let everyone around you support, wrap around you, nourish you. You can't do it alone. If you come sick, you cannot get healthy alone. You can't. That's the secret. That when you're physically, emotionally, spiritually down, that's why church is needed. That's why it's so powerful. You come on a day you don't need anybody, guess what? Somebody else is going to need the spirit that you're carrying that day. If your faith is in a good, peaceful, harmonious place, if you're in serenity, and you might wake up one Sunday morning or on a community service Sunday where we don't actually have a service, but you might wake up feeling pretty strong. You might be one of the trees in the forest that sends out the root system to support another, because guess what? We ultimately and eventually need each other in a way that makes it so that we grow spiritually, that we stay strong physically, that emotionally we have peace and serenity. And it really does work that way. Emanuel Swedenborg said that trees correspond to friendship. And that's because of how they function. He also said that if you want to see how people should holistically grow, observe how trees grow. That trees' growth and maturation parallels the human growth and maturation. Did you know that trees feel pain? Trees carry memory. Trees grow and stay near their offspring. So we're not meant to be alone, and we do our best thriving and growing and service together. And that's the power of a faith community, that's the power of family, that's the power of friends, that's the power of our faith and our relationship with the Lord. Because if we feel one day extra strong and we just say, Lord, I think I got this one, guess what? I don't think so. Because maybe in the short term, we're very capable. But what the trees and the forest know is that over time, stay interconnected. Because when the storms of life come, we will topple without the other, without each other. Theron read this morning, in Genesis, the very first book of the Bible, it talks about that tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God gave us this image and this reality that connects us to the earth and to each other. And we're to learn from the trees. They are teachers. And then in the last book of the Bible, in Revelation, it talks about the tree as medicine and for the healing of the nations. And look at this little calorie pear tree and all that it's doing. And every time we have a tragedy, because we have tragedies, we have joys and blessings, and we have tragedies. And every time we have a tragedy at the magnitude of the level that we're talking about today, this little tree reminds us that that Spirit of God is moving in that tree and moving in us, and not to give up. Look at the gnarled, broken, snapped off roots and branches of that tree, and look at it today, and look at the symbol that it represents for everything that is good in us and among us. So I say we go on a road trip. I say that we take a train. Wouldn't that be fun? Take a train to New York and visit that tree. Give homage to those who lost their life and to the families who live in the hope of seeing their loved ones one day, especially the Titus family. But then also let's visit the New York church. Let's visit the Washington, D.C. church and learn a little bit more about what's out there, because we have this precious, wonderful congregation. And sometimes I think it's important to go outside the boundaries of what we live in week by week, day by day, year by year. Let's expand our vision of where the Spirit of life is moving. So, as we leave this day in this worship, keep your eyes and your hearts open to the trees. Let them shade you. Let them nourish you. Let them teach you.